Mr. Speaker, I am proud to yield 7 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from the state of Washington, Mr. Reichert.
The gentleman from the state of Washington is recognized for 7 minutes.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I support the troops wholeheartedly and without reservation, but I cannot support a resolution that simply opposes a new strategy without offering an alternative plan to win. There is too much at stake. Many of you know that I was a cop in the Seattle area for 33 years. I was the sheriff for 8 years. And as the sheriff, I had an opportunity to attend a remarkable ceremony. Every year, a group of naturalized American citizens gather to remember the circumstances of their arrival in the United States. The group is comprised of police officers from Vietnam, men that fought side by side our American soldiers. These Vietnamese officers assumed the greatest risks, risking their lives and endangering their families to join the United States in their fight for freedom. When the United States pulled out of Vietnam, there were dire consequences for these brave men who risked everything to fight with the United States. The officers were rounded up. Some were imprisoned for 15 years or more, and some were executed. Those who managed to flee and escape death made their way to the United States. They left everything in Vietnam and made new lives in the United States, and they were able to enjoy the freedoms that they had fought for, but not in the country that they had hoped for. Let me just take a moment to set the stage for this ceremony. As the sheriff, I sat down at a round table with many of these Vietnamese soldiers and police officers, and they came in their uniforms that they brought along with them, those that were able to escape, those that spent 15 to 17 years in a prison camp where they were beaten, where they were tortured, where they lost their freedom, they lost their dignity, but they never gave up hope. And when they came here to the United States of America and they come together on this evening to celebrate their freedom, and the American flag is brought into that room, those men stand at attention and they salute. But you know what else they do? They cry. When the American flag is brought in, they cry because they lost their freedom. But now they know what it's like to have it back. It's a dramatic scene. If we leave too soon in Iraq, what happened to those Vietnamese officers could certainly happen to those Iraqi soldiers who bravely fight side by side with our troops today. And I don't use this example as a way of comparing this conflict with Vietnam as some have done. I believe that the two wars are very different. I use it because it could happen again. I never want to attend an event where former Iraqi soldiers are attending a similar ceremony. The fact is that we are engaged in a global war with people intent on killing us, killing Americans, and regardless of how we got into Iraq, Iraq is now the central front of this war. I understand that there are many who think we should not have entered Iraq. We now know there was faulty intelligence that led us into Iraq and to make that decision, but the war is upon us nonetheless, and I am elected to deal with what is happening now. The consequences of declaring an end to the war in Iraq without victory would be felt for decades. Our enemies around the world would be emboldened. Iran and Al-Qaeda would declare victory. Our allies in Iraq would certainly face bloodshed, and our allies around the world would question our resolve to help protect them. Our troops are clear about their dedication to their mission. They want to succeed. American soldiers dutifully responded when we asked them to go to Iraq and oust the dictator, establish an infrastructure, and train the Iraqis so that they are able to protect themselves. Now we must do what the troops have asked of us. They have given us their service, and in too many cases they have given us their lives. We must give them the opportunity for victory. Our current strategy in Iraq is failing, and yet failure is not an option, not only for the United States security, but also for the security of the Iraqi soldiers and police officers that still fight today side by side with our troops. In November, the American people told us that they wanted a new strategy, not because they wanted to lose, but because they want to win. And now we have a new strategy before us. Is this new plan going to work? I don't know. No one in this body that will vote on this resolution, a non-binding resolution, knows whether or not this plan will work. But what I do know is that we must find a way to achieve victory. And simply saying no to a plan without offering an alternative won't work. And it sends a terrible message to our enemies and to our soldiers. This is an historic war. America is engaged in a war for our freedom on a scale that we've never experienced before. I understand the dissension, the questions, and the uncertainty. I understand the cost is high and the way is unclear. As a cop, I've lost partners. I've lost friends in the line of duty. I know the pain that causes. I understand the loss. It's sad, it's tragic, and you never forget. But we must remain focused, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't let those sacrifices be in vain. Madam Speaker, or Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote no on this resolution, and let's send a message to our enemies and our troops alike. We will always support our young men and women who put their lives on the line for freedom, and that we will give them what it takes to succeed in the missions that we have given them. I yield back.